The external perimeter of the facility, historically known as the Museum of Witchcraft, is officially reclassified in recent archives as a sector of absolute territorial dominance. Forget the local folklore and myths. Field reports from an elite unit of gunners confirm this is not a site for historical research, but a terminal point of a biological failure. Upon arrival, we do not find standard signs of a skirmish. Instead, we see the results of the instant liquidation of a professional military unit. The irony is profound. These operatives were equipped with state-of-the-art detection technology, yet their systems were utterly useless against the specific acoustic signature pulsing from the upper tiers. The most anomalous detail is hidden in the final entry of the commanding officer's log. Their motion sensors detected an organic object of incredible density moving in a space where the building's structure should logically collapse under such kinetic energy. This was not a random encounter. This was a coordinated protection protocol of a primary nesting ground. The real question that will force your neural circuits to their limit is this. Why did the gunners' high-tech equipment record encrypted radio frequencies originating directly from the biological tissues of this apex predator? Why is this asset not merely defending its territory, but actively broadcasting its combat data to a restricted government channel that should have been deactivated 2 centuries ago? The answer lies at the lowest level of this facility, behind doors that were never intended to be opened again. The internal topography of the museum confirms this was not a random act of scavenging by the gunner unit. Encrypted records within Sergeant Lee's terminal reveal the true objective of their mission, classified as Operation Cold Capture. Their objective was not the extraction of weaponry or pre-war hardware, but the recovery of an item designated in the logs as a primary biological container. The asset, which we typically categorize as a wild predator, actually initiated a standard retrieval protocol. To put it simply, the asset's aggression is not an emotional response. It is a systemic reaction to the removal of a critical component from a secured sector. We find evidence that as soon as the container crossed the museum's threshold, the apex predator transitioned into a forced asset recovery mode. Every neutralization of operational variables inside this structure was executed with calculated efficiency. The asset was not merely eliminating threats, it was methodically restoring the integrity of a biological chain. The most anomalous detail appears in Private Hart's final audio log seconds before his contract was finalized. He reported that the container inside his pack began emitting a low-frequency signal identical to the one broadcast by the entity above. They didn't just steal an object, they activated a living beacon that cannot be deactivated. As the container was moved through the museum's levels, something occurred that defies standard biological patterns. We discovered that the building's architecture, a specific combination of ancient dry wood and porous stone, functioned as a perfect passive resonator for frequency 88.3. This was not merely a sound, it was a total neural synchronization. The most anomalous evidence of this process is hidden within the salvaged T-60 power armor helmets abandoned in the main hall. An analysis of the visor system logs reveals that the HUDs did not simply fail due to interference. What occurred was a total interface corruption. Seconds before the finalization of the protocol, the pilot's displays ceased tracking tactical metrics. Instead, they began broadcasting the biological telemetry of the asset itself. This resulted in complete neural desynchronization. The operatives began perceiving thermal signatures and tactile data through the predator's own senses, while still locked inside their steel shells. Their brains were subjected to a sensory overload that the human psyche is physically incapable of processing. They didn't just face a threat, they were forcibly integrated into the asset's sensory network, becoming its eyes and ears moments before their final operational liquidation. Visual contact with the asset on the upper level completely erases the theory of a random mutation. This is not a wild entity, but a modified biological weapon functioning as a living interface. Along its spinal column, between the bone plates, we observe clear evidence of deep surgical intervention, a series of subcutaneous neural ports pulsing with a faint blue luminescence. The asset's movements lack any predatory randomness. It is not hunting. It is executing a systematic zone clearance protocol. The specimen pauses every few seconds to sync its internal telemetry with frequency 88.3 originating from the container. During these intervals, a massive electromagnetic surge occurs. We observe the electronics in the room, broken lamps and terminals flickering in perfect rhythm with its biological heartbeat. This is not merely the presence of a living organism. This is the operation of a massive biological relay that transforms the environment into an extension of its own neural network. Any movement in this sector is no longer tracked by the entity's eyes, but through distortions in the electromagnetic field it generates.
Good, Deathclaw.
We are officially inside an active operating system. The true origin of the incident inside the Museum of Witchcraft is revealed not on its upper tiers, but within a hidden West-Tek safe discovered in the basement sector behind a false wall. The documentation inside bears a top secret classification and a specific code name, Project Acoustic Phantom. According to these files, the primary biological container was never intended for simple incubation. It was engineered as a living neural node for the Enclave's long-range communication network. The museum's architecture was selected not for its history, but for its physical properties, as a passive resonator capable of broadcasting frequency 88.3 across hundreds of miles. As we analyze these records, the asset above suddenly ceases all movement. The systematic patrol steps have stopped. The resulting silence confirms a shift. The specimen has locked on to our Pip-Boy frequency. The interface begins to flicker, displaying the same biometric data found in the gunner logs. The Acoustic Phantom program has recognized us as a new operational donor. The asset is no longer patrolling the sector. It is synchronized with our presence and is simply waiting for the moment of final data transmission. We finalize this field audit by executing the mandatory logistics protocol triggered by our Pip-Boy synchronization. Returning the primary biological container to the central nest is not an act of mercy. It is the restoration of operational integrity to the Acoustic Phantom system. Once the component is secured, frequency 88.3 stabilizes into a consistent data stream. The asset status immediately updates the allied entity.
Good boy.
As part of a reciprocal data exchange protocol, the specimen grants access to a specialized CQC biological interface. This modified bone structure is not a simple trophy. It is a close quarters combat tool synchronized with our new neural signature. We are departing the Museum of Witchcraft, leaving it as a stabilized communication node in a network far larger than initially projected. Final warning. If your HUD begins to flicker in rhythm with your own pulse, your operational autonomy has already been compromised. You have completed the analysis of the Museum of Witchcraft asset. Subscribe to the Declassified Commonwealth Archives for our next report, Biological Optimization at Suffolk County Charter School. Data saved